Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Revelation, chapters 4 through 6.
And as you can see, Ruben has something very special.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, I have the King James Version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard Version of the Bible.
We also have the Jewish Annotated New Testament and the NIV Study Bible.
Oh, you know what else we got? We have Erdman's commentary on the Bible. We have from the New Interpreter's Bible, the New Testament Survey. We have
a Greek New Testament and a textual guide to the Greek New Testament.
Yes, we do. And then let's list off some of these commentaries on Revelation. We have the book Revelation from Robert Mounts. This is from the New International Commentary on the New Testament. We have JPM Sweet's commentary on Revelation. We have the Tyndale New Testament commentary on Revelation from Leon Morris. And we have Jürgen Roloff's commentary on Revelation from the Continental Commentary
That
series.
Sounds like it'll be the best one for some reason.
The thing is, this is definitely one of my favorite commentaries on Revelation.
For some reason, right now, inexplicably, I think that I trust Jürgen.
Right? Yeah, for no reason at all. No related causes. You trust a guy named Jürgen.
No reason. I can't put my finger on it.
No,
Anyways, we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff here. And here, I mean, really, the red text has stopped. Jesus does not speak until...
For a while.
The last chapter.
The last chapter, okay.
Yeah, so... From here on, we are no longer having the previous setup that we did have. You know, he was delivering messages to each of these churches, and now that is over. So, are we through with all of the epistles?
Well, I mean, we're through with every... Oh, for the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
So,
epistles done. Final thoughts on the epistles.
Oh, I mean, they were interesting. They were, mostly talking about the enemies of the totally not Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There were conflicting ideologies throughout. There were things that many people say are not in the New Testament, such as the homophobia in Romans.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They were an interesting bunch.
Well, people usually say that Jesus didn't say anything about homosexuality, which is true. He didn't say anything about it.
Not directly.
At least not directly. At least not in the Gospels.
Not in the Gospels, no. But anyways, we now have Revelation proper, right?
Yeah, this is where like all the wild stuff starts coming in, and we are of course starting. Well, today, of course, we're talking about the 4 Horsemen, and I have done a lot of work on this kind of stuff, right? So I did the video on Revelation where I talked about I mostly talked about Nero on that one. I did the video on Heavenly Horsemen. So I actually, interestingly, yesterday, I uploaded my my script on the Heavenly Horsemen to my Google Drive so I could access it for the show, because I'm definitely going to use it, because if I already did the work, why hop back into all the commentaries I already read on it when I have all the information written?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's all together here. You've done the research.
Yeah, I have. So that part's going to go super smoothly. But this first part, this Revelation proper. This is of course, the second section of the book overall. And I think now we're kind of changing view, right? In fact, this vision has a lot to do or a lot of influence from Ezekiel 1. So we're going to see many parallels in that way.
All right.
Yep.
So right off the bat, I have some commentary. John is still assumed into an ecstatic state in the spirit. In some translations, there's a reference to spirit here that's capitalized. And that's just due to Christian theology.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. His ascent to the heavenly throne is immediate and unmediated, unlike other apocalyptic ascent narratives like Daniel, 1st Enoch, and the Testament of Levi, suggesting a recognition that prophetic ecstasy itself can bring one into the heavenly world.
Do we read what is it, the Testament of Levi?
Testament of Levi.
Is that what you just mentioned? I don't think we read that.
Did we read the Testament of Levi? Let me check.
No.
Because
I don't remember if we did.
It has a different name, maybe.
I don't think the Testament of Levi is even in here.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Check the other big
unfortunate.
book.
Oh, no. So
They're both listed in here.
Yeah, they contain lists of what's in both books. But either way, that's something to look into eventually, I guess.
Yep.
Testament of Levi.
Eventually. So, chapter 4. After this being the delivery of the message from Jesus.
Right, yeah. So this is a new vision.
Mm-hmm. After this, I looked, and behold,
Behold.
a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was, as it were, of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. So, the trumpet here, that's interesting because usually we don't think of the voice of a trumpet as saying something. Also, this is not listed as red text in the KJV, but this is listed as red text in the NIV.
Really?
So there's
a reason for this. It looks like this is because of a... Well, actually, hold on. That's not actually the same reason. So
it says Moses
it's
was called up to Sinai to receive divine direction in Exodus 19, 20, and 24. You can see also the heavenly ascent of the two witnesses. Some interpreters find the rapture of the church in this verse.
So this is where we get a little stranger. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the text itself, there is a segmentation issue. If a break is made at the end of verse 1, after metatauta, so after these things, as in the text, the sense is, I will show you what must take place after this. But if a break is made before the words metatauta and not after, then the sense is, after this, I was at once in the Spirit. Mm-hmm. So there is a segmentation issue in verse 1.
Interesting.
And which we've run across them before, but it seems like they are not including a break here, at least in the Greek New Testament. They're not including the break.
I think that the point of the trumpet is not to say that it sounds like a trumpet, just that it's projected really loud. If you've ever heard a trumpet in real life, they're very loud.
They are very loud, yeah.
Extremely loud. And usually when we've had references to trumpets earlier in the Old Testament, they're referring to shofars.
Right, and, for battle.
Right, and the sound, there were different calls that would be made because the shofar, I mean, it can make a variety of tones.
Right, so there was like a battle one, and then there was one that was for like getting the congregation together, but I think they just changed the number of times that it would have been blown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that, right? In the Jewish services now, they have different shofar calls that they serve different liturgical functions, right? So there's one where it's like, right? Like,
if you say so.
Right? And there's also one that's like, right?
Wow.
It's like totally different. Right. Right, Rosh Hashanah, which just happened, by the way. So literally, probably millions of people were hearing these exact shofar calls like a day or two ago.
Fair enough. But also, I would like to point out here that before we move on to the to the next thing. So it starts off by seeing a door, right?
There's a door in heaven. We were talking about the cosmology or the cosmic geography.
Right, yeah, but also that does actually kind of fit in well because Ezekiel 1 is often used in that discussion as well because of, well, this is one of the reasons, the door specifically. So, yeah.
We know there are windows from Genesis.
Right, yeah. So the heavens were opened and I saw, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. So that
now
was
yours says the heavens were open. Mine just says mine says a door was opened.
No. I'm talking about in Ezekiel. In Ezekiel, the heavens were opened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Which is obviously reminiscent of the Noah story.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Right.
And then where it says come, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the word there is erku, and erku comes from erkomai, which means come or go. It means like coming or going, some sort of movement like that. So the word here, it is an imperative, so it can either mean come or go. So it's actually unclear on who exactly is being spoken to. So when it says, because it just says come, right? But this isn't actually Jürgen Roloff's. He has it just says come up here. So it has like a speaker implied, right? However, it just says erku. It doesn't say come up here.
But in the context of the verse,
no, because it also mean go, as in go from here. So sending people out.
But in the context of the verse, it you might want to check the Greek. I don't know how it actually is, but it says, and the first voice which I heard was, as it were, of a trumpet talking with me, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
If that's established earlier on, then maybe the generality of the statement is, well, one would imagine intentional, but maybe to serve more of a dramatic function, right?
Yeah, it's saying to me, oh wait, hold on, what on earth here?
Is it totally different in the Greek in chapter 4?
Wait, why is this? Oh wait, is this a different? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong verse.
4:1?
Okay, so never mind. So this one is actually come up here. My bad, everyone. So there will be a passage later in chapter 6 where it's translated similarly as from erku. This one, my bad, is from actually anaba, which is from anabino, which is come up. So that's my bad. That is my bad. There is a section later on though.
Right. Here we have a direct command to engage in the ascent narrative.
Yeah.
Right. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone.
What?
And there was
mean?
And there was a rainbow around the throne, in sight like unto an emerald.
Wow. Okay.
So what they're referring to is probably like the segmentation of a gem that would be cut, right, such that it creates some kind of dispersion of the light effect, right? Some kind of reflection or kind of fractal pattern, something kaleidoscopic maybe,
So
depending on how the gem is cut and the way that the light bounces through it.
the thing is, this is very close, or this is starting to approach a kind of description of the heavenly throne room. Because if you remember, like not in Genesis,
This almost sounds Norse.
because here's the thing. Because in Exodus, right, the throne room is said to have what was it? Lapis lazuli, right? It's supposed to be blue, right? And
What is the sardine stone here?
yeah, well, I'm gonna checking that
Salmon
right now.
colored?
So
Carnelian.
yeah, there's so identification of 3 stones, jasper, carnelian, and emerald is somewhat uncertain. Since modern jasper is opaque, many interpret the ancient stone as a translucent rock crystal. In 2111, it is said to be clear as crystal, perhaps a diamond. The carnelian sardius was a blood red stone named after Sardis, near where it was found. If the rainbow that surrounded the throne room was a halo, then the emerald is usually pictured as green. Otherwise, it is colorless crystal that reflects a rainbow of prismatic colors.
Okay, here.
Yeah, different meanings have been attached to these.
No, since God dwells in unapproachable light and is one who has seen or one whom no one has seen or can see, 1 Timothy 6:16, he is described here in terms of the reflective brilliance of precious stones, an emerald rainbow around the throne. See for reference Ezekiel 1:26 through 28.
Yes. So while in his vision, Ezekiel describes the shape of what appears, at least at the beginning, in its human similarities and mentions the holy name of God in those same verses, John exercises even more restraint. He exercises even more restraint here. What he describes is simply a glistening and shining that he compares to the sparkling of variously colored jewels. There may or may not be meaning to each of the stones. I think that with the rainbow, that would be the covenant, right?
I want to check something here.
We got an
Because
Enoch reference?
Erdman's tells us that this may be a reference to a couple of Enoch narratives, and
Shout out to Enoch.
I want you to pull out,
here's
I want you to pull out the Apocalypse of Abraham.
I will, but here's another thing. So it looks like the presence of God. So they do. Traditionally, they would have been representative of the presence of God, because in Psalm 104:2, it says that it conveys the presence of God, quote, who clothes himself in light as with a garment. Even then, this is like around him, right? So not quite.
This is from First Enoch. And he translated my spirit into the heaven of heavens. And I saw there, as it were, a structure built of crystals, and between those crystals, tongues of living fire. And so he talks about the fire that like surrounds it, and then there are angels, and then he talks about the head of days, his head white and pure as wool.
So
light.
That's directly
his raiment indescribable, right? And in 2nd Enoch 20.
That's also the language that's used in Daniel, I believe. The Ancient of Days language, yeah. And you said
this is the head of days, but basically,
basically the same thing. So you said the Apocalypse of Abraham?
Yeah, pull up the Apocalypse of Abraham. It actually says 15:2 through 18:14. So maybe,
it's quite a big section.
Yes.
Yeah.
While you're looking for that, there I'll go over the 2nd Enoch section that's mentioned here. They talk about the 10th heaven. God, in the Hebrew tongue, he is called Aravat. And the heavenly troops go around, and, they talk about boundless light and tender voices. And they talk about the seraphim who say, Holy, 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 Lord, ruler, Sabaoth, heavens and earth full of your glory. And they talk about...
Sorry, what were the verses one more time? Do you remember, or the chapters?
Apocalypse of Abraham, 15:2 through 18:14.
Okay.
Then they talk about the 9th heaven. But here, in order to see God, it says, my soul departed from me with her terror and trembling. No. His soul doesn't literally depart from him. This is something that this is metaphorical here. But the 10th heaven, they talk about the Lord's face being ineffable, marvelous, very awful. I cannot tell the quantity, the various voices. The Lord's throne is very great and not made with hands. Yeah, basically this is more of the blinding light narrative that pops up through Second Enoch.
Yeah, most of the stuff in the Apocalypse of Abraham is about fire. So like and behold, in this light a fiery Gehenna was enkindled, and a great crowd in the likeness of men. And then continuing on here, there are sections that and while he was speaking, behold, the fire was coming toward us round about, and a voice was in the fire like a voice of many waters. So yeah, lots of fire imagery.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, even in like this hymn, like it says he's exalted and fiery.
Yeah, there's also Third Enoch.
Oh yeah, showing forth the age of the just, you make the light shine before the morning light. Before the morning light upon your creation from face to face to spend the day on the earth.
So Third Enoch talks about the princes of the Merkabah and the flaming seraphim, and they lead them up to the throne of glory.
What's the thing you were quoting about fire from?
Oh, that was from the Apocalypse of Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah.
They also talk about the gates here. The gates of peace, the gates of wisdom, the gates of strength, right? That was a big thing in Third Enoch. And yeah, so it seems like...
Wait a minute.
What's similar to it in Third Enoch is that there's like this pretty immediate thing where like chapter 1, he ascends on high and is brought before the throne of glory, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's like the main thing that happens in the first chapter, and then they proceed to talk about it. So there are a lot of similarities with Enoch literature throughout. There's kind of a developing throughout the Enoch literature idea of this throne of God, but it's a consistent theme that pops up.
Right. Yeah, we can continue, I think, though.
Okay. But yeah, doubtlessly the author of Revelation would have been familiar with some of the ideas from the Enoch literature at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely he would have been.
Yeah. Beyond the shadow of a doubt.
But he's seeing this throne and it's very glimmery, so.
Mm-hmm. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. Who are these elders?
Well, so it says here clouds of clouds. And from the throne issues flashes of. Oh no, never mind. Yeah, golden crowns on their heads, and then I was a verse ahead. So no one actually knows. There have been some ideas this goes back to Babylonian mythology.
It's traditionally here understood to reflect the 12 Israelite tribes of the Old Testament and the 12 apostles of the New Testament.
Okay, yeah, that is another idea, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So one was let's see, the identity of the 24 elders has been widely discussed. Commentators who tend to find the source of John's imagery in the astro-mythological tradition of Eastern polytheism, which I highly doubt, by the way. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the author of Revelation would be thinking about Mesopotamian mythology.
Dang.
So I highly doubt, but either way, there was a in the mythological tradition of Eastern polytheism, take the elders to be a Judaic counterpart of the 24 star gods of the Babylonian pantheon. Others interpret them as symbolic of the 24 courses of Aaronic priests in 1 Chronicles 24:5, who in heaven render to God that perfect worship of which the priestly worship on earth is but an imperfect copy. Many writers interpret the 24 elders as symbolic of the church in its totality, a combination of the 12 patriarchs and 12 apostles, but this seems unlikely in that their song of praise in chapter 5 definitely sets them apart from those who were purchased by the those who were purchased by the blood of Christ, most certainly the church. Since no exact counterparts are to be located in Jewish literature, it seems best to take the 24 elders as an exalted angelic order who serve and adore God as the heavenly counterpart of the 24 priestly and 24 Levitical orders. So that is that could also be a possibility, definitely. It seems
it would not be a verse reference because verses didn't exist at this time in it as we know them today.
No, it would not be a verse reference.
Right. So all of the people who would be like, oh, this is some like apocalypse code, right? That is just completely off the mark and cannot be.
They would go like a different way, right? They would be like, oh, it's 24 sentences in, or 24, and in some languages that could be meaningless.
It might hold numerological value.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, there is a huge Jewish numerological tradition, and it does pop up in Revelation with their 616, 666, right? So that definitely is part of the literature here.
Because it's Jürgen Roloff. So Jürgen Roloff says that rather everything favors the notion that the elders signify not transfigured human beings, but angelic figures, specifically the members of the heavenly council with which the Old Testament is acquainted, like in Isaiah 6. Or
the Council of the Gods that pops up in Psalm 82.
Yes, Psalm 82. The thrones on which they sit are symbols of sovereignty. Their mention is reminiscent of the primitive Christian hymn in Colossians 1:16, where the term throne serves to describe angelic beings subordinate to God. The number 24 is most easily explained as a reference to the number of hours in the day. Accordingly, the elders represent before God the fullness of time, and their purpose is to praise God ceaselessly day and night. A lot of ideas.
No, that tracks, because by this time there would have been a pseudo-rabbinical tradition. There would have been a rabbinical tradition. But
Yeah,
the rabbinical tradition that would have been set up by this time would literally be encouraging things like continual prayer, right? If you look at the Talmud, like very early stuff in the Talmud, it's arguments where they talk about, and yeah, that would be later on, right? This would be much later on, but it probably points to an earlier tradition to some degree. It's arguments involving, things like when it's appropriate to start and end prayers, right? And they talk about, there are certain arguments brought up where you are supposed to do this continually, right? The act of praying, like, yes, you are supposed to do this, the specific, like, morning prayer, right? But they say, well, there's the evening prayer and then there's the morning prayer, and you should be praying the whole time, right? Right? From evening prayer to morning prayer to evening prayer.
Sure, I definitely get that. There is also another idea here that JPM Sweet notes, and I do kind of like this one, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there probably would have been. I don't know if this one's accurate. I don't know if any of them specifically are accurate. This would be its own study by itself, right? So taken by some to mean angels, in line with the Old Testament pictures of God surrounded by his court, but nowhere are angels called elders or said to be crowned. More probably, they are the Old Testament worthies who already have a place in heaven. The men of old of Hebrews 11. What is that? Of Hebrews 11, who received divine approval for their faith as their white garments or justification, and crowns, and he interprets that as a reward for faithful witness. So he is kind of doing his own reinterpretation there. So the white garments and crowns. Their number perhaps stems from the 24 heads of the priestly families, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if there were something and you're not going to like this, but something akin to the Theosophical Society's idea of the Great White Brotherhood. If they have,
You're right. I didn't like any of the things you just said, but
Right.
go ahead.
you're not going to like it. But if you have a Merkabah tradition and you have literature like First Enoch, and we know for sure that he was acquainted with this literature, right? There may have been some list of some such ascended persons which may have been recognized by some groups. We can't know for sure, but this might be a reference to some persons. I know that there were traditions that ascribed Mary even to have ascended. I know that there are traditions that ascribe Moses to have ascended.
Right, yeah.
And definitely Elijah's already in the picture here.
Yeah.
So we have reason to believe that there is an established, at least in the Bible canon, list of people and extended into Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha or the Merkabah literature. There very well may have been more people included there. So this might be a reference to a similar idea to that, where these are like extremely accomplished human beings who have attained a higher level of being. It might not have anything to do with that whatsoever, right? This might literally be a reference to something to do with the tribes and some list of prophets.
Right.
Or like some of Adam's kids.
Wait a minute. How many books are in the Hebrew canon?
How many books are in the Hebrew canon? I haven't counted them in a while.
Was there? I believe there was at one point a 24-book canon. There are different hypotheses, right? And I think for some of them, like there was an idea of a how many letters in the Hebrew alphabet?
It depends. If you count certain things as different letters, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Because we can do like, give me something to write on. And give me something to write with.
Oh, I don't know if I have one of those.
Wow.
Shit, I'm out of those too.
I might actually have
You goonie.
Whoa, rude.
Yeah. Goonies. So you don't have
I don't think I actually do.
Jesus, guys, I'll go grab one.
Wow, that's embarrassing, Lawrence.
Must have moved it or something, because
Yeah.
I definitely had one at one point.
That incredible.
Yeah, all right. But either way, what was I going to point out? Right. Okay. So I was going to look up the
Hebrew canon.
Yeah.
Right? Really? Chris, do a better
What
job.
did he-
There's nothing.
There's plenty of
It's
things.
a yellow pencil.
Yeah.
He could have picked any color. There are a bunch of them over there, but he picked
It's yellow.
bright yellow.
Pick
The
yellow.
worst one
The
to write
Worst
with.
one, the right way.
I'm not even gonna try. It's not even worth my time to attempt to do so. It's
See, this is
such a low quality.
okay. So have you guys seen that meme going around that was like, if
That's
you
acceptable.
had to decide what was in heck, and heck was like a very diluted form of hell, right? So everything
Sure.
is like not as bad as hell. That would be in heck. That would be horrible.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I'm looking up the letters in the Hebrew alphabet because I don't actually know. Because I
So
think that
this
there
isn't
were,
complete, right?
I believe
But
there
you
were
have,
24, right?
like,
Or 22,
olive-
right? Okay.
Right. You have Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Daled. Hey, but you may not consider Bet and Vet different
letters, right?
It depends on how you want to think of it, because this is like Bet, Vet,
Yeah.
right? And some people say that traditionally this didn't exist, or this was just sometimes implied, or
Right. Yeah.
like, so who knows?
So here is
If we refer instead to a piece of literature that I know you've never read, the Sefer Yetzirah,
Right, yeah.
Very interesting book. There are 8 chapters to it, and it does not include vet as a separate letter. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, either way, okay. So a lot of the time, usually it's seen that there are 22 letters, okay? And they had a biblical book for each letter, essentially. That's how early Jewish canon was usually held. There is some evidence of a 23 book canon, I believe, but I forget if there was evidence of a 24 book canon.
Wow.
So there might not have been on that one. I'd have to hit the books and check again. But yeah, that's what I was wondering if that had some significance, because they did keep up with the canon.
Yes. If we take the Sefer Yetzirah list of letters, and when we do that, we get 27 letters.
Okay.
But there are different forms for Mem, Nun, and Sadek. If you have them as the last letter in the word, it's part of how they differentiate words.
Sure, yeah.
Right. And if you remove those variants from the list, you have 24 letters.
I see. Okay.
So
there are cases. Wait, when was this written?
Wait, hold on. 22 foundation letters, 3 mothers, 7 doubles, 12 simples, 3 mothers, aleph, mem, shin. Their basis is a scale of innocence and scale of guilt, and a tongue ordained to balance between the two. 7 doubles, bet, gimel, daled, kaf, peh, resh, tav. Their foundation is life and peace, wisdom and wealth, fruitfulness.
Okay, whatever. Right. But when was the book written?
When was the Sefer Yetzirah written?
Yes.
Sefer Yetzirah.
Because I don't know if that alphabet would have been like the same one, but yeah, but they usually kept up the number.
Some scholars say it might have an early medieval origin. Others emphasize earlier traditions. Most date the authorship to the Talmudic period, but
still not quite there yet.
According to some Jewish sources, it's most characteristic of the 3rd or 4th century. Could be Geonic period. Could have been cast in the form of early Jewish gnosis from the 4th century. It could be. So Christopher P. Benton, the Hebrew grammatical form, places its origin closer to the period of the Mishnah, around the 2nd century.
Yeah, see, we're not quite there yet.
Richard August Reitzenstein puts it in the 2nd century BCE.
Ooh, okay. Wow, that's...
So it depends entirely on what source you're looking at,
right? Yeah.
When it might be from. But we have this varied range of anywhere between 200 BCE
and medieval,
medieval.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. That's not very helpful. All right. Yeah. Let's continue though.
Yep. Let us continue. I don't even know what verse I was.
Verse 5.
Verse 5. Okay. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices.
Wow.
And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God.
Yes, which we also kind of went over with the churches, right?
Mm.
And thunder.
7 is fullness.
Right, yeah. And like thunder, rumblings, all that stuff is kind of goes along with here's how God presented himself in these days. Mm-hmm. Those were classic features of revelatory literature.
Yes. Obviously, the lamps and the fire burning have significance to the Jewish tradition. They literally have an internal flame tradition.
Wow.
Right, yeah.
And so before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. A couple of things.
Yeah,
here.
fun stuff
First,
here.
Let's start with the sea of glass. This is in Solomonic literature. There's a story that talks about the Queen of Sheba visiting Solomon, and there being this like glass or crystal flooring that he has, which she undresses when she walks towards because she thinks it's water, right?
Wait, what story was that?
I don't recall exactly where it's from, but I've seen it brought up in multiple sources. It might be a rabbinical story.
It might be that. Maybe it's from that Ethiopian book.
It might be. I know
I think it was with that book with Solomon, all those demons.
I don't think it was in the Testament of Solomon.
No, it was not. I don't remember that.
It might be in the Odes of Solomon.
Could be in the Odes, right? Yeah, Kebra Nagast. Yeah. So that's the Ethiopian book that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be in there. But I don't know.
This would have been imagery that would be familiar to someone well versed in Jewish literature,
right? Yeah.
The kind of crystal fountain, right? But really, it's just flooring that's very, very water-like because of how clear it is.
That looks very, very pure. Okay, so it looks here that in 2nd Enoch 3:3, the prophet sees the first heaven, quote, a very great sea greater than the earthly sea. Apparently, God's throne rested on these waters in Psalm 104:3.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks of God laying the beams of his chambers thereon. Some writers compare the idea with the Assyrian myth of the creation of the gods by the union of celestial waters.
Mm-hmm.
This text, however, speaks only of what looked like a sea of glass. We are intended to understand it as a visual phenomenon that adds to the awesome splendor. If we are to find a source for the sea of glass, we should probably turn to the great throne chariot vision of Ezekiel 1.
I agree. For some inexplicable reason, I look extra manly today, and I can't tell what the difference is. It's just beyond me. But no, the throne imagery of Ezekiel 1. I mean the angelic beings full of eyes are a familiar image.
Right. Yeah. Especially in Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it looks, and then we have a list of beasts.
But I did want to point this out. Ezekiel 1, over the heads of the cherubim spread out, quote, what looked like an expanse sparkling like ice and awesome. Ezekiel 1:22. This is another indication of their cosmic geography. Above the shining firmament was the throne. And in Job 37, the sky is pictured as quote, hard as a mirror of cast bronze. The sea of glass is part of the larger scene, and apart from heightening the sense of God's separateness from his creatures, has no special significance. Well, they are still describing the universe.
Now, I want to bring up that Ezekiel's vision saw 4 living creatures, each of which had 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle.
And they were also between, and in this vision, they are these creatures are standing in the midst, in between all of these.
Now we have a different narrative that pops up here than that, because here it says, and the first beast was like a lion, the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had a face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. And the 4 beasts each had each of them 6 wings about them, and they were full of eyes within. And they rested not day and night, saying, Holy, holy, holy Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. Which, as I referenced in 1st Enoch before, exactly what happens in that ascent narrative. It's almost like it's plagiarizing it.
Oh my Gerb.
Yeah, lion, ox, man, and eagle.
Lion, ox, man, eagle.
Yeah, right. My favorite superhero. Right. Ezekiel 1:10.
These are not the single-faced being of Ezekiel. They also use different animals, because this one has a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle. Now, a calf can be an ox, but there's a different implication there. I think that's more going towards the purity of the sacrificed animals that we see for all of the different offerings in the Torah, right? Because they're commanded to sacrifice.
How about I just
calves.
check the Greek on that one?
Mhm.
Because that could be translated differently. Which verse was that? That was verse 7?
Yeah, verse 7.
Okay, let's see. So 4-7.
And the reference to these seraphim singing out, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." Right, this is what the seraphim do, and this is what these 4 beasts do. So there's an association there. And when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever.
No, yeah, it says Moskos,
Moskos.
bull.
Bull.
Like,
So
is
it
that where
is not
Moscow comes
different.
from?
That sounds like Moskos to me. And so it is literally the same animals as in Ezekiel.
Yeah.
The KJV just sucks.
Yeah.
The 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So here we have confirmation of Christian theology, I guess, that the entirety of creation is just purposeless, beyond being God's plaything. It's just for his entertainment. And all those people who say that, religion gives life meaning, right? Read Revelation 4:11, right? Because it's pretty clear that this meaning that you're deriving is from being essentially a member of a cosmic ant farm that God likes to look at once in a while.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
That's not very fulfilling, if you ask me. And that's also the end of chapter 4.
Impossible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so if you guys are enjoying the stream so far,
Do the things that you would do or not.
do regular things. I'm not pressuring you to do anything.
Wasn't there an eagle in Daniel?
Yeah, probably.
Daniel, I don't remember. There was the thing that had a face like an eagle, right?
Yeah.
That's
Another thing with a face like an eagle. But that was reminiscent of Ezekiel as well.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And Daniel would depend on Ezekiel, I assume, right?
In some ways, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a later book, right?
Yeah, but Daniel is later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure.
it is 2nd century BC.
Yeah.
So, let's see what else we got here. So yeah, that was the end of the chapter. Now we're going into the enthronement of the Lamb, or the
Yes.
Lamb in the sealed book.
What is this lamb? What is this thing? There's something about a seal.
Yeah, essentially something about a seal.
So like Ezekiel, John receives a heavenly scroll whose contents are so foreboding that no heavenly being will assume responsibility over what it contains. This is going to become a new thing. But there's an aside here I want to bring up while you're getting ready. John, a new Ezekiel. New Testament scholars often note that Revelation is unusual among Jewish apocalypses for keeping the real name of its seer, John. Most apocalypses from Daniel and Enoch, though through those ascribed to Ezra and Abraham, couch their revelations as the experiences of past Jewish heroes, legendary for their piety, purity, or intimacy with God.
Well, we're also talking about something that's supposed to happen later, so it would make sense to you don't have to antedate it that, or you don't have to antedate it that far, because if you're actually talking about something that's going to happen far in the future, you don't have to antedate things to make it seem like what you're writing is of the past. It's because it is of the past.
Well,
So-
who is this John that the book should depend
John of Patmos, he was in
his
exile. We
authority?
talked about this.
Yeah. Did the Jesus movement itself change the terms by which apocalyptic visions were transmitted? Revelation emerges from a milieu of prophetic mediation in which John may have had some authority. Subsequently, the book gained its credibility in early Christianity not as the visions of some John, but rather of the John, who allegedly wrote the gospel and the letters. But the authority of the book for its initial audiences would not have depended on the legend of its implied author so much as on the very familiarity of its materials, which echoed revered biblical texts: Exodus, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and most importantly, Ezekiel. John's debt to Ezekiel appears already in the description of the four living creatures by the throne of God in chapter 4. The idea of divine marks or seals, which follows, that afford protection from divine judgment, depends fundamentally on Ezekiel's secret vision and the destruction of Jerusalem and the marking of the righteous in Ezekiel 8 through 9. The instruction to John to eat the angel's scroll, which is going to come up later, and his description of its sweet taste borrow the vivid symbols for literary prophecy of Ezekiel 3. The defeat of the mysterious enemies, Gog and Magog, which occurs much later on, depends on Ezekiel's description of these people's destruction in Ezekiel 38 through 39, while the feminized and sexualized downfall of the whore Rome in Revelation 18 draws from Ezekiel's nearly pornographic tale of the shaming of the two sisters Aholah and Aholibah in Ezekiel 23, as well as his sarcastic dirge of the city of Tyre in Ezekiel 27. Finally, John's divine instruction to measure Jerusalem before and after its destruction in 11, 1 through 2 and 21, thus assuring his audience of the city's heavenly dimensions, follow Ezekiel's similar actions with the heavenly temple in Ezekiel 40 through 42. Ezekiel's heaven and prophetic imagery endowed John's revelation with authority. Visions of heaven that have cleaved to recognizable traditions. And John's allusions to Ezekiel may not have been arbitrary, for Ezekiel in his world, like John in his own, was formulating a notion of prophecy that was not simply spontaneous utterance or oracle, but rather suggested the authority of heavenly books and writing. While other Jewish apocalyptic authors of the later first century drew on the legends of archetypal scribes like Ezra and Baruch and even Enoch, and the similitudes of Enoch and Second Enoch, and while Jewish prophets eschewed texts for the immediacy of performance, John found in Ezekiel a model for prophecy inspired by text and expressed in text, and a prophecy that revealed truths about priesthood, the temple, and the manifestation of God, not simply the imminence of the end of the assurance of God's cosmic control. John thus presents himself as a new Ezekiel, revealing in text the essential symbol of the temple and its cult in God's plan for the last days. So that is a long aside.
Right.
But I think very important to point out how thoroughly this text depends on Ezekiel.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's proposed here that the author is using this as a means of promoting his own legitimacy, right? By creating a kind of association between himself and Ezekiel, because there wouldn't have been this is the author of the Gospel of John tradition by that.
They wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, they wouldn't have cared about that. So interesting take. Very different.
All right, so on to chapter 5. Then I saw in the right hand of him who was seated on the throne a scroll written within and on the back, sealed with 7 seals.
Yeah, the scroll, it can be like the little scroll of 10, 2 or 10, 8 through 10. It has writing on both sides like the tablets of the Old Testament covenant law. This is detailed in Exodus 32:15 and also Ezekiel 2.
Right. And I also want to point out that Ezekiel 2 is mentioned there, where in chapter 2, a book of lamentations with words written on both sides is handed to the prophet. So this is, let's see.
So There's actually some details here.
According to Roman law, certain documents were required to be sealed by 7 witnesses.
Oh.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think, but the point is that it's a complete.
It's a complete sealing,
Completely
except so it is sealed, right? So the thing is, he can still see both sides. So if you have a scroll,
well, here
rolled
the
up.
fibers of a papyrus scroll run horizontally on the inside, which makes writing easier than on the reverse side, where the fibers are vertical. Right.
Okay. Well, either way,
which-
like the thing is, he could see from his vantage point
Yeah.
that there was writing both inside and outside, but it was a scroll that was sealed. So how could you see it if it were sealed? The idea here is that it probably can't be utilized while it's sealed, but it can be seen by everyone. Whatever this scroll is.
Can be utilized or seen.
Well, it can't be utilized. It can be seen. So people have access to the information but can't use it, I guess. Unless it's unsealed.
Lawrence.
I see what you're going for.
You can see that there's writing on the inside. It is sealed. You can see that there's writing on the outside. It's still sealed.
I feel like an actual scroll would be a little better sealed than that. Wouldn't you say?
Maybe. Maybe if it's the perfect.
Oh, it's inside a scroll holder, and the scroll holder has like a bunch of wax seals, 7 of them.
It probably would need that.
Mm.
Because
Shipping and handling.
shipping and handling, yeah, that is true. You do need to transport it to the next.
Maybe the
heavenly realm.
writing on the outside says that there's writing on the inside.
Maybe that's a
Well,
fun one.
See inside for more.
The point isn't literally that it has writing on the outside and the inside.
Also, in
Right,
Daniel 8:26, the prophet is told, "Seal up the vision, for it concerns the distant future." So that's a fun one. Some scholars have suggested that the scroll of destiny was in the form of a book rather than a papyrus scroll. The argument is based primarily upon the Greek text. Okay, well, that part doesn't actually matter. By altering the punctuation and following in inferior text, some interpreters read a book written within and sealed with 7 seals. But this amounts to saying the obvious: where else would a book be written or sealed, for that matter?
I don't think that the point is that it's literally written on with both sides, right? The point is that it's so overflowing with whatever it is that it has, right? Whatever secret wisdom or heavenly power or whatever, that it can't be contained on just one side of a scroll, right?
Or we have the idea of, because this is like a divine one, right? So like, yeah, I could probably keep it on one scroll if it's a divine scroll.
But it's much less dramatic of an image.
Right. Or you just say that, I don't know, this is all you're going to need type of thing. Because if we do take the parallel with the tablets being written on both sides, then you could draw the conclusion. Well, actually, no. I would say, yeah, with the parallel of the tablets being written on both sides, the vision and Daniel together, I would say that which the author here had access to, definitely, referencing like the very same motifs. Considering those parallels, I would think that he believes that what he has there is I don't know if he interprets it as the Torah scroll totally, or just the tablets, or if he is envisioning this as a new law, or like the new covenant, I guess.
We'll see. Keep reading.
Okay. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look into it.
This is a callback to the second commandment, which commands you not to make any graven image of anything which is in heaven above or on the earth or under the earth.
I see. So yeah, but no one could access this information. And I began to weep loudly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold!" Okay, Landon. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals.
So the kingly Messiah.
Yeah. So those are the big things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lion of Judah, root of David.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Lion of Judah being used in some Psalms, right?
Lion of the tribe of Judah, Genesis 49, 9 through 10. Here a messianic title.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to flip to Genesis for a second because
okay.
I want to remember what they're talking about here. So in Genesis, this is 49, 9 through, is that what it says? 9 through 10. You are a lion's cub, O Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him up? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs, and the obedience of the nations is his.
All right.
He will tether his donkey to a vine, and this is being interpreted here messianically, as is typical for this.
This one I don't think it's supposed to be, though.
No.
So continuing on. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders. Between the throne. Okay, so I'm kind of getting what's it called? A tabernacle-y kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly, because it's not in like a rectangle or whatever, but concentric circles, right? But then kind of what one foci, or no, it'd be like an ellipse, right? Mm-hmm. It'd be concentric ellipses, and then one foci is the throne, but then probably next to that, or maybe he's in the middle and the lamb is just next to him. But anyway, sorry. I saw a lamb standing between the throne and the 4 living creatures, and among the elders I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain.
The crucified Messiah in risen heavenly form. The lamb was also the main Passover sacrifice while the temple stood.
With 7 horns.
7 eyes as well.
7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth.
May be inspired by Zechariah 4, but here the correspondence of the Lamb's 7-fold attributes to 7 spirits, congregations, and seals signifies the perfection of all things radiating from heaven.
I do want to also point out that so the word for lamb that's used here differs from the one that is used in the Gospel of John, and that is one of the reasons that this is not taken to be the same author. Mm-hmm. So the word,
Revelation uses a special word for lamb.
It uses arnion.
Only used once elsewhere in the New Testament, in John 21:15.
Right. So let's see. In John's Gospel, Jesus is certainly identified as the Lamb of God, but a different Greek word is found there, amnos. It is more likely here that we are dealing with a Christological symbolic image that the author of Revelation himself fashioned from available traditional motifs.
Mm-hmm. The 7 horns here. The 4th beast of Daniel, 7, 7, 10, and 720, had 10 horns. The horn is an ancient Jewish symbol for power or strength. 7 horns would symbolize full strength.
Right, yeah. So this is, Passover motifs, right? So this is still in the same spirit as, it still has that, Savior Christology. Mm-hmm. So let's see. If I don't know if I have any other comments on this.
Continue.
No, it doesn't look like I do. Just kind of remember how everything is around everything else. So this this lamb, right? Looked as though he had been slain. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Well, that one's pretty easy. He can do it. He's worthy of worship.
Harp, an ancient stringed instrument, not the large modern harp, used especially to accompany psalms.
Yeah.
The bowl's full of incense. This
Like-
bowl would be a flat, shallow cup.
Yeah.
Incense was a normal feature of
Yeah.
Hebrew ritual.
I love
Yeah.
I love how they're describing, like, here's what a harp is because you're stupid. Also, here's what a bowl is because you're stupid.
Combs
Yeah, I
in
think-
ancient times were very similar to combs in modern times.
They
Who's
were
the target
smaller.
audience for this footnote. I don't understand.
Yeah.
An uninformed person.
Yeah,
You know what a bowl is? You got to this part of Revelation
Without
you
knowing what a
went
bowl
through
is.
the whole Bible. You got all the way here, and you don't know what a harp or a bowl is.
Unfortunate. And they sang a new song. A new one.
Oh no, not again.
Well, the thing is, it's
Psalm 33,
okay. Yeah.
96,
Oh, are we doing this again?
144, Isaiah 42.
Is this a combination of those, or is this just similar ones?
In the Old Testament, a new song celebrated a new act of divine deliverance or blessing. That's also its sense here. It's not.
Supposed to be a new one.
It's
They're
not
never fucking new. They keep telling us they're new. They're not.
And now for something completely different.
Nope. I'm going to continue reading here. Let's get into this song, right? Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna start that over. Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God, and from every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth.
And that's the end of the song. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope that was really good. I hope you guys liked my audition for American Idol.
Oh, there's another one coming up.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. My audition can continue. Then I looked and I heard.
It's just saying that this is a Messiah, basically.
Right, yeah.
He's worthy. He's the chosen one. Supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them.
Then I looked and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing.
What a great sequel song. You know, for a second track, I'm loving it.
Yeah, right.
It's like, grindcore?
Oh God,
Unfortunately.
not that.
Yeah, so with grindcore, you want like really fast songs, like ideally under 10 seconds. So they would do something like and that'd be it, right? That's a grindcore version of that song,
Brilliant.
right?
The background.
It's revolutionary. There's musical brilliance here beyond its time.
You know what? If you say so. The background is Daniel 7:10, which speaks of thousands upon thousands, 10,000s times 10,000, who stood before the Ancient of Days to minister to him. So it seems like a bigger, slightly bigger, right? Where you have those myriads of myriads. So it just seems slightly bigger. Yeah, this is the same issue as pointed out by Roloff here as well. All right, I'm gonna continue on.
Yep. Because there's another song.
There
coming
is.
up.
I'm making jams, and I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them, saying, "To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever." And the 4 living creatures said, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshipped.
Okay, so this is like a psalm of praise.
Is
very brief.
Yeah.
But very much so a psalm of praise.
Yeah.
And
definitionally almost.
yeah, we have a general procession here, right? First, it's the elders. Then it's the myriads of angels. Then it's every creature in heaven and earth, right? There's probably some significance to that ordering. It's odd because it places the elders above the angels, but I suppose that wouldn't be so odd if you were following something like a Life of Adam and Eve tradition, which would definitively place human beings at a higher place in a hierarchy above the angels, right? Though I'm not sure.
Not a place, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It is strange. It's a little weird because it circles back around to the elders. And maybe the point of that is to like signify some kind of ultimate fullness, right? Because they have this procession. Elders, angels, everything else circle back to elders. So it's like a circle that brings in literally everything that could be praising God, right? It's all simultaneously praising God after this procession has happened, right? I think that's the point. But it kind of, it undermines the entirety of what came before, right? Who cares about these angels or these elders or even these 4 living creatures when in reality, the reason that they exist is very similar to how angels functioned in 3rd Enoch.
Right?
Yeah. They exist to be described and then to bow before whatever's bigger than them, right? And
yeah, essentially.
And that's all that there is to them. So it's not very satisfying as a way to take the presentation of these things.
That's just how they do angels.
Yeah, I guess it is just a part of the literature that we're going to have to live with. Yeah. When we start the next chapter, I don't want to read this entire aside, but I want you to read it out loud for the people while I...
Oh, on this 4 seals?
No.
No,
this is technically... So the chapter starts
here. Yeah.
I want you to read this while I'm off screen.
What? Okay. The numerology
because
of
that's
Revelation.
Halfway through our show, and do you hear something?
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Oh, hello, everyone. It seems that Jesus has stopped by again. You know what, Jesus? You're looking a hell of a lot better than you were just described in this book. Because he had 7 horns and 7 eyes, and he looked like he had just been killed. Man, that is a rough condition. Oh, fuck! Reuben's gone too.
Oh yeah.
Did you do this?
No.
No? Okay.
Oh.
Well, in that case, I'm gonna fulfill his last wishes, and I'm going to. He told me them. He said he wanted me to read this.
Why would he tell you?
Yeah. So let's talk about some numerology stuff here. So in antiquity, certain numbers implied perfection. So we already talked about 7 and stuff like that, right? The Torah offers different types of numerological perfection in 7 and 12, while 4 signified, as in most cultures, the cardinal directions, and 40 conveyed an enormous but limited period. Apocalyptic authors regarded these numbers as divine in nature, part of the eternal structure of the heavenly world and linked intrinsically to God's perfection. So references here, for example, Enoch's experiences. The periodizations of history that some apocalypses offered to explain the alternation of fortune and misfortune in Jewish experiences usually unrolled according to some perfect number. So 490, 7 times 70 in Daniel 9, or 14, which is, they have it listed as 12 plus 1 plus 1, but that's just 12 plus 2. I understand what they're going for, because that's in Second Baruch, by the way. But still, like, please, that is just it does. I get why they're doing it, but I hate that still. I still hate that. So they would use all this stuff in Revelation, of course. So the sevenfold entities consist of temple materials and angelic servants of the heavenly temple. Although this heavenly number is extended in the congregations to which the heavenly Christ, holding 7 stars, is addressed his letters, that being the 7, and to the number of seals on the mysterious scrolls of judgment. It's everywhere. John also develops the symbolism of the number 12, which signifies the special perfection of Jewish heritage, but probably had also acquired astrological associations by the Roman period. The blessed of Israel are organized in 12 groups of 12,000 each. The word 1,000 signifies a sufficient enormity. And the mysterious elders John finds in heaven are themselves numbered at 24, recalling the perfection of measurements in Ezekiel 40 through 48, and the Qumran temple scroll 11Q, as well as called 11QS temple. John's eschatological Jerusalem reflects the 12-fold perfection of Israel. It offers three forms of negative numerology. The period designated for the rampage of the nations and the activity of the 2 martyrs in chapter 11 is limited to 42 months, precisely half of 7 years, and so an indication of incompleteness. So we're going to see that a lot. But then once we get to the number of the beast in 666, there are a few ways to do that, although some people have, of course, mentioned that, like, I think Mounts specifically, he was like, this is actually from it's actually incompleteness instead of being about Nero. That's what Mounts suggests. Mm-hmm. This calculation, of course, the calculation, which we will get to, reflects gematria. Let's see, exploring the mysteries of the world through their corresponding numbers on the assumption that Hebrew letters themselves had divine origin. By itself, 666 or 616 in some manuscripts had no special numerological value.
Right. The divine origin of Hebrew numbers and letters is something that we would get into if we went into Sefer Yetzirah.
Right, yeah.
Right. So,
but
was an interesting ascension.
Here's what I kind of
I
want
met this guy who had one eye, and apparently, like, threw his other eye into a well or something.
Oh, shit.
And then he hanged himself as a sacrifice of himself to himself.
Oh, that Odin guy.
Yeah, I heard about that guy.
Yeah. For some reason, he popped up instead of Jesus. I don't know why.
Wow, that's crazy.
I can't place it.
I have no idea where that possibly would have come from, Ruben.
Nope. No idea whatsoever.
No. I was just over here singing Val Hallelujah all the time.
Mm-hmm. Val Hallelujah.
Yeah, for no particular reason. Yep. That is also a song by that band.
Yep.
Which is brilliant. It has a Hebrew prayer to Odin.
Yep. We are not sponsored.
No, but that'd be pretty dope if they did. Be.
And if you want to be sponsored, then Nord Stream antivirus Shadow of the Legends is for you. Go on to the App Store and search whatever it is that I just said and see what you get. I mean, maybe it'll change your life.
It might.
I don't know.
I found it.
Loading?
Did you?
Yeah, I think I can show it. There you go. Nord Shadow Legends.
No. It's back.
Yeah,
Nord Shadow Legends.
Yep. Nord Shadow Legends.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, chapter 6. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder.
Just so we know, this is the four horsemen that we're getting into. So this is exciting shit. Better stick around.
One of the four beasts saying, "Come and see."
Right, and this is the case where come can also mean go, because it's erku.
Really?
Yes. So it's unclear if the Lamb is saying come here or if he's saying go out. Yeah.
That's insane.
And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth, conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld. And lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him.
Hades.
And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with beasts of the earth.
Right.
So here are the four horsemen.
Yes. So I'm just going to read a part here. So first of all, and Hades followed him, which has been used for death before, right? Even in the Gospels, I think. Wasn't Hades used? The word Hades? I think. Yeah. So for hell specifically.
It depends on who is translating.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I'm talking about the actual Greek word. So yeah, I'm going to talk about these 7 here. So since I have already done quite a bit of work on this, you know what I really want, actually, in chat, if we could do this while I pull this up. So what are all the colors of the horses? Yeah, it would be a poll. Yeah. So the colors of the horses. We got white, red, black, and pale. So ask, like, the question would be like, which is your favorite horse? Yeah.
Black?
Yeah, black and pale.
Yep. That's Pale.
You know what? That's the one I was going to go with. Just because the other one, I don't even know that one. Is that Pail?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I got lucky.
Job,
man. You throw enough darts.
Woo! Yeah, but this, we're gonna have a poll. We wanna and make sure you motherfuckers vote.
What's your favorite?
Yeah. So I'm gonna get into this commentary while that gets posted. So the first rider comes on a white horse, wearing a crown and carrying a bow. Already, So firstly, why is the horse white? So it's often seen as a color of victory and glorification in the Bible. Because the horse is white, many interpreters have argued that this rider is Jesus, because Jesus is clearly the rider of the white horse in Revelation 19. Furthermore, according to Matthew 24:14 and Luke 21:12, the gospel had to be preached to all nations. This is unlikely, however, as Jesus is the one opening the seals. This horseman, then, might be a reference to the Parthian threat to the east. At this point in time, at the end of the 1st century, the only known mounted riders were skilled with bows. Who were skilled with bows were the Parthians. Our modern vernacular even has a hint of this when we say Parthian shot. Furthermore, white is also a color frequently used by the Parthians.
No one likes it.
Right.
No one likes those Parthians.
No one. And of course, this one is obviously meant to symbolize conquest, or specifically,
It's explicitly said to be symbolic of conquest.
right. And specifically wars between states. This is where it's important, right? Because there were parts where, do you remember when we were going over, in like much of the prophetic literature, there was stuff about all the stuff that would come along with it being the end time, or not just the end times, but like the times for the day of judgment, right? That being, we got this in the Gospels as well. There's going to be war, rumors of war, and I believe wild beasts was part of that as well in some listings, but I'm going to go over that too. However, it's important to realize here we have wars between states. So this the next rider, because it used to be distinguished, right? So he was given a sword and the power to take peace from the earth, so men would slaughter one another. Red, of course, being the color of bloodshed. Even though this rider has a sword, he does not kill anyone. Instead, the men kill each other. Distinct from the conquest of the first rider, which implies war, this rider represents civil war. So it's very likely that John of Patmos was influenced by a passage from Mark, where it's totally possible. That's the synoptic apocalypse. This is where we find the famous prophecy about the destruction of the temple. Some of Jesus' disciples ask him, when will all this happen? What sign will you show us that these things are about to be fulfilled? Jesus informs them that there will be false messiahs, war and threats of war, nation will war against nation, earthquakes, famines, and persecutions. So, of course, many of these are described here. But where was I? Famine is clearly identified, but the distinction between war and threats of war, and I put these in quotes here. So the first one is war and threats of war, and then in the next category, nation will war against nation. So there are two distinct categories that can be understood as civil war and conquest, respectively. Since the rider on the red horse is meant to be civil war, this might symbolize the end of Pax Augustea, a long period of peace for Rome, although the peace was only within the Roman Empire. There have been a plethora of rebellions leading up to the time of John's writing near the end of the first century. These could be what John had in mind when writing his work, especially if he had the synoptic apocalypse in mind. The third rider comes in on a black horse. This one would be famine. The use of a scale, for example, was used for rationing out and portioning things by weight. Mm-hmm. And this has been used in Leviticus and Ezekiel 4 as well, that food supplies had to be rationed out in times of despair. So this would still clearly be famine. The fact that, so it had to be rationed, clearly weighed for distribution, implies the scale. Hence, the third rider denotes famine. This is different than starvation. In each of the cases described, the people don't starve to death, and those would be the ones in Revelation, Leviticus, and Ezekiel. For those examples, the people don't starve to death. Rather, food is scarce and must be rationed. Further adding to this imagery is what the voice says about food prices and which products will be available. A denarius was a full day's pay. The point is quite clear. The cost is incredibly high. There is also, most likely, a contemporary reference here to the reign of Domitian. During his reign, there was a famine in Asia Minor. Bread costs were twice as high, and in 91 CE, Domitian ordered that no new vineyards be planted. He also ordered that many of the existing ones be destroyed to make room for cereals. As to be expected, there was such an outcry against this that the order was repealed. This not only explains the reference to the famine, but also the reference to the oil and wine. Finally, we must briefly examine the voice in the midst that spoke those haunting words. I am of the opinion that this voice refers to the exalted Jesus. We are told that the voice was in the midst of the four creatures in chapter 5. We also learned that this is exactly where the Lamb Jesus was standing in 5:6. He was in the midst of the four creatures and the elders and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The final horseman, and this is probably my favorite one here, The fourth and final horseman is Death. He comes riding in on a pale horse with Hades by his side. So obviously a very iconic scene.
He's the only one that's named.
Right, yeah. So the word that's used for the color of the horse, at least, is chloros, and that's very important. So it's translated as pale, but it's better understood as a yellowish green color. It is best to it's where we get like the word chlorine from. So the word is usually translated as pale, better understood as yellowish green. It is best to view the horse as having the color of decaying flesh. This is put into much better context when we take a look at the name of the rider. The word translated as death is thanatos. This is better understood as death by pestilence. Considering the meaning of chloros, the color of the horse, the identification makes all the more sense. We are now prepared to look at my last section was why were there four? And essentially it was because of literature like there's a very clear parallel in Ezekiel 14:21. For this is what the sovereign Lord says, how much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my four dreadful judgments, sword and famine and wild beasts and plague, to kill its men and their animals. These four dreadful punishments are exactly the ills that we see described. So, of course, we have the swords reference, we have the plague reference. Famine's identification is exactly the same. It's obvious.
What?
But then it leaves us with the wild beasts. So instead of conquest, why does John list wild beasts? Perhaps it's an allusion to the four beasts in Daniel, which are zoomorphisms of Israel's enemies.
Or maybe we are the beasts.
Yeah, so that was the section I wrote on from my video on Heavenly Horsemen. I had a great time making that video, all right? And that was part of the reason, because I thought that this subject was really cool. So...
Okay, let me get...
Luckily, my commentary for this section was already done.
Okay, let me get your take on two things.
Okay.
First of all, why is conquest switched to pestilence within church tradition?
Oh, that's a fun one. So what is that? That's 6. Okay, so in verse 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does yours?
It doesn't change the word. It's still always conquest, but people refer to this tradition.
Oh, right. I see what you're talking about.
As pestilence rather than conquest.
Here, you know what? This commentary is a bit more from a conservative side. So let's see if they have something for that. So it definitely was switched to pestilence at some point. Like I definitely remember that coming up. It looks like, well, here, yeah, he's just talking about conquest. He's not even really talking about pestilence here. It doesn't even mention pestilence. Perhaps. Oh, is it in here? Check Edmonds. While you do that, let's see what else comes up here. It looks like in verse 2 here, there is no reference to pestilence. Unfortunately, they don't even really mention it. Why it's switched in church tradition.
Okay, there is something in Edmonds.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. The vision is no doubt inspired by the four horsemen and the four chariots of Zechariah, in which these groups are commissioned to traverse the earth and report on its peaceful condition.
Which I talked about in my video on Heavenly Horsemen.
Yep. Each of the riders responds to a divine invitation as a bringer of disaster. Well, there's no doubt about the nature of the second, third, and fourth riders associated with the plagues. They bring slaughter by the sword, scarcity of food, pestilence, and wild beasts. The identity and function of the rider on the white horse is debated. Some interpreters regard the conquering unleashed by the first seal as the proclamation of the gospel, according to some accounts of apocalyptic expectation, which should take place before the end. Along such lines, a comparison is often drawn between 6:2 and the rider on the white horse in 1911, who is Christ. Instead, it's more likely that the first rider, only generally described as going out, conquering, and to conquer, is used to introduce the evils unfurled by the following three riders. just as the catastrophes brought by the fourth rider, who is death, attended by Hades, provide a summative conclusion to the events associated with the others.
I like my explanation better.
In this case, the image of the horseman with a bow may be reminiscent of the Parthians,
Right.
who were thought to pose a military threat to the Roman Empire from the east. Here, the illusion provides a negative counterpart to the vision of Christ as an instrument of God's purpose. It signifies John's convictions that the political stability offered under Rome is not secure. Taken together, the first four seals underscore the Roman world's vulnerability to military conquest and economic disasters. Each disaster is called forth by one of the four living creatures who worship incessantly at God's throne and proclaim the Lamb worthy to open the seals. How are the disasters related to the Lamb's activity? Answers either, okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll not get into that now. But I think the point is that this initial first horseman is kind of just more of a generic introductory horseman under certain interpretations. And because pestilence is named somewhat as one of the features that comes along with the horseman,
Right.
It just is assigned.
It's just assumed. Yeah, that's ugh. All right.
Yeah, because it says in the death verse, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague.
Yeah.
So that's all four of them. Kill
Right,
by
yeah.
sword, famine, and plague.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, let me continue on. I've just finished the horse section.
Although,
And when
like
he-
I described before, plague would be close.
Well, it's
that
a
would be the
sickness.
last one. That'd be the pale one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, would it?
Well, I specifically gave an argument as to why chloros, the color of the horse, meant like it was the same as the color of like decaying flesh.
Yes. Yeah, that would follow.
Right.
But that would be true in a number of... I mean, if any of these things happened to the horse, it would be decaying. Right? If it was stabbed through the head...
Yeah. Yes, it would decay.
Decay.
Right.
If it starved to death...
It's not what happens to the horse.
Uh-huh.
It's what the color of the horse implies.
Right.
So, like, it's not that the horse itself is decaying, it's that it's the color of decaying flesh. And that signifies its purpose.
I thought that was the point, is that, like, it is a generic symbol of death, and...
I specifically made an argument
follows-
as to why it's death by illness. Because you can die in a multitude of ways. If you die in a bloody way, you'd probably be a lot more red, right? But if you die of illness, like, you know, fucking just all phlegmed up and like you're starving and stuff like that, like you die with that kind of yellowish green.
Yeah, but that defeats the entire purpose of having the white horse rider at all, right? Because if it's just this conquest,
they're redundant. We know
war. It's war. I already told you. It's war between nations
Right,
instead
it's
of
war between nations, and then we have like the one that is red, which is about
Civil War.
individuals slaying each other.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is redundant.
Somewhat.
When you're talking about
A
war,
nation is
remember
an
this.
abstract.
Remember this: wars
Overlap.
and rumors of war.
Uh,
And those were both supposed to be like predictions of this stuff, right? So in the same way, they made that distinction in the ancient world.
Yeah.
So
of course they did, because they're different.
they're different things, yeah. So these things, as being indicative of the end times, as being like the first things to happen at the end times, right, would be representations of those.
I just don't think it follows necessarily that one of these can be definitively placed as rumors of war as what they symbolize, right? Because either case, right, they're talking about a rider with a bow who's going out and conquering, or they're talking about like this swordsman with this huge sword riding on this horse. That's a very warlike image. Either one is not really like, oh shit, bad stuff's coming. It's more of a, they're here and we're about to die kind of image, right? And
I mean, like I mentioned, the rider on the red horse he's not killing anyone. Men kill each other.
no, he comes in with this large sword.
Right.
It's about what the image evokes, right?
Well, he's a horseman, yeah.
Okay, dude shows up with this giant sword and is explicitly there to make men kill each other. That sounds like a military situation.
Sure, yeah.
It sounds like a general of some sort leading an army and fighting against another, which I think is why it's associated with war.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly.
But if we have a conquest horseman, it's the same thing as war. Conquest is war. It involves war.
Right,
It
but this is
implies
the
war.
distinction between war and civil war.
Mm.
Is the point I'm trying to get at.
I'm just not sure that would have been really a firmly established concept at the time. I mean, if you think about the ancient world, you're thinking about like nation states that are loosely related outside of like Rome.
Well, after
Even Israel and Judah are nation states that are like loosely related.
right, but so if we're talking about Rome, right? Like in Greece, by the time with the ancient Greeks, sure, but then with Rome, it became far more, at least in the first century, it became far more. This is my land. We know what we have. It became far more. The borders were way more well defined than they were in the Greek period.
I suppose. I just can't imagine that they would have the same concept of what a civil war would mean as we do.
Probably not exactly the same, right? But
I mean, earlier
war within the nation.
Yeah, within the nation, but you have to keep in mind that these earlier groups of people, they often associated each other based not on the distance between them, but the language that they spoke, right? Like the Greeks were unified by virtue of speaking Greek, and like that's it. It's not just because they were close to each other, and even the ones that are like further away. I mean, you could argue that Athens and Sparta are fundamentally different
Culturally, yeah.
as to not be comparable. But no, they're still Greek. And
well, this is because when you get into defining that, I don't think any culture has ever really defined how to split those hairs.
I just think that there's this tendency to think about the concept of a civil war in a modern context as strictly being within a nation's boundaries. But that could be expanded in the ancient world, really, to anyone who shares any identity features, right? The northern tribe and the southern tribe, each going to war with each other, could be interpreted as a civil war. It could also not. The war with the tribe of Benjamin.
Right, is
it a civil war or not? Because they are definitively going to war with a group of people who is not them, but they're related.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would count that as a civil war. But that's just me, right? If in some cases it becomes like it does just come down to
they
splitting
were
hairs
different nations according to the one that lost.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just hard to conceptualize how ancient people at the time of John of Patmos might think about war and civil war and varieties of things such as national identity.
I feel like with the Romans especially, it would have increased heavily because they were like, we're taking over this entire area, and then if you want to keep your community, you'd have to define those boundaries.
Yep. Well, with the Romans specifically, they would just refer to anyone who's non-Roman as a barbarian, right?
Or convert them.
I mean, I don't know about I know the Greeks.
The Greeks did that, but I think that the Romans did that too. Maybe they used a different term, but But essentially, like they saw that as lands that rightfully belonged to the Romans.
Right? Yeah, that is what they saw. Yeah.
So what are the national borders of the Roman Empire? If not
moved.
something that will continually change until it covers the entire earth or fails.
That was the goal of the Romans. Yeah. But we probably should continue.
Yeah, let's continue on getting revelations. This thing is really uncomfortable, by the way.
Right. Yeah. You're allowed to take it off.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm not.
No, nothing's uncomfortable. Actually,
nothing's uncomfortable.
he actually lied to you.
I'm not wearing any hat.
No, nothing like that.
There's nothing on my head.
No.
So these horses. And when they opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, martyrs, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge your blood on them that dwell on the earth? Wow. Literally blood for the blood god, huh?
Yeah.
And white robes were given to every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants, also and their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just wait a little bit until more people like you die. That's a little much. And I beheld.
So this is we're into the sixth seal now. So, but for the fifth one,
Yep.
this is the same kind of stuff we get about the martyrology and the really whenever we talk about the end times and people's faith, right? For apocalyptic literature, it's like martyrology. We've talked about that a whole bunch, right? That part in Daniel, the part in not the part in Daniel, sorry, the part in Maccabees, right? And there was a martyr story in the Testament. What are we reading? The Testament of Moses? Yeah. There's the martyr story there. There are plenty of martyr stories, and they all serve this purpose of dying justly, and then retribution will be had on you, and sevenfold or whatever. So yeah, I don't think there's really much that needs to be covered here.
I wanted your take on this too. The rider at death, it recalls the Hebrew Mot, a Northwest Semitic deity of death, mentioned in Habakkuk 2:5.
Yeah.
It's accompanied by Hades, the personification as well as the place of the Greek underworld. Their coupling may reflect the parallelism of Mot and Sheol in ancient Hebrew poetry. So,
Okay.
I don't know. You didn't really bring that up.
Didn't have to.
No. No, what do you think of the association between the rider death and the Mot?
I think it's very, very indirect.
Too loose
Yeah.
for my liking.
Yeah.
So they get these white robes, and they're like, blood for the blood god. And I beheld. When he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth a hair, and the moon became as blood.
Holy shit.
And we have a return to this blood moon imagery. That popped up on Friday. When we were talking in the Testament of Moses, they talk about the horns of the moon being cut out. That is, the light that it sheds would not be there. And that it became blood, right? That the moon turns red.
Right, yeah.
So this is an extant apocalyptic image, which is found in other sources. I'm not sure if the red moon shows up in the Bible.
Well, it looks here. So
It's in First Enoch. It's in Fourth Ezra. It's in Second Baruch. It's in Romans. Okay, it's in Romans 11:25.
in a passage quoted by Peter on the day of Pentecost as partially fulfilled at that time, Acts 20:20, the prophet Joel says of the coming great and terrible day of the Lord, the sun will be turned into darkness and the moon to blood. The stars of heaven are pictured as falling to earth like unripe figs in a winter gale.
Yes, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken as a mighty wind. That's the next verse.
Right, yeah. Isaiah spoke of the starry host falling like withered leaves from the vine. Isaiah 34:4. It is one of the signs that immediately precede the coming Son of Man, according to Matthew 13. Yeah.
And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men.
They're back. They're back.
The mighty men are finally back.
Wow,
it's been so long.
A decade.
Wow. It has been years since we saw the mighty men. Okay, the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is to come, and who shall be able to stand? Rhetorical questions. Nobody's going to be able to stand. They're fucked. And that is the end of chapter 6.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
A lot of the imagery is stuff that we've seen before. I suspect we'll see some different things next week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But these are familiar ideas. Hopefully all the information on numerology and stuff was useful.
Yeah. Let's see what's coming up next week here. So that was what, the 6th seal?
Mm-hmm.
So in the last seal next week.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. It in the last seal, and I believe. Oh yeah, we're doing the the 144,000 thing. You know the thing Jehovah's Witnesses love so much. 7 trumpets. Let's see, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think that would be it after that. Oh, and there's going to be a little scroll the next time. And then we're going to start getting to the 2 witnesses and the dragons. And all right, yeah, this thing is ramping up super quick. Okay, let's go.
Well, you know what they say.
No.
Saul has his thousands. David has his tens of thousands.
Oh, yeah.
That is true. They do say that. Anyways, oh, by the way, no, it's not 616.
What are you talking about? Don't you speak Latin?
So the there is a pretty old manuscript that does still contain that. However, the vast majority of manuscripts dating not even that much later than that across many traditions still say 666. So it is more likely that 666 is the original still. It is. It also just makes more sense in context if it was 666. So, yeah. Anyways, that is the show for today. Hey, you know what you guys should do? The things that you should normally do, but also join the Discord. That's the important part. Join the Discord.
And everyone who subscribes to the channel goes to Valhalla.
Yeah. Val Hallelujah.
Valhallelujah.
Bye. See you next